Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about these things, these round circles called steering wheels. And yeah, so when steering wheels were first made, there wasn't really any prior inspiration for what they would be. Mainly ships, and they used tillers. Some used tillers, but most used tillers. And this is a picture of a tiller right here. This is a picture of a helm. And tillers were used on most cars until the first steering wheel was used on cars in 1894 during the Paris Rouen race, when it was used by a panhard driven by Alfred Vacheron. And it was the first recorded history of using a steering wheel on a car to turn. And by the time the Model T had arrived in the US, the steering wheel had become a mainstay in automobiles. So that's basically where it went, as in its adaptation by automobiles. So because of the war during the 1940s and 30s and the Great Depression, power steering wasn't really fitted on passenger vehicles. It was mostly fitted on the war vehicles used during World War II. But after the war, during the 1950s, they started putting power steering in vehicles, so then it was a lot easier to turn the wheel. And, I'll put a picture of a power steering system here. And basically, because the power steering had been started being used by GM, basically all the other kinds of cars, all the other car companies started using their own and making their own kind. And that was pretty much the only change for a little while, until the airbag came in the 1970s. At first, GM just started offering the airbag as a built-in optional feature. It normally used in government-purchased automobiles in the 1970s, and I'll put a picture of an airbag right here or right here. The steering wheel really started being used as a control center in the 1960s, where car makers started fitting operating switches like cruise control onto the wheel. And that's pretty much all that happened until the 1990s, where infotainment technology and other gadgets in cars really started to become a thing. And so the things that needed to go into cars was a lot, because for new audio systems, because 1990s was the birth of the internet, so things like that were coming around. And so they needed space for the audio system and the car's computer and other things. So it meant that they would have a really hard time cramming it all in there. So they decided they needed more space, and they needed to be within reach of the driver. So they put them in the spot where the driver will always have their hands on the steering wheel. And so they just made it to where the steering wheel was bigger, and they had more space to accommodate all the wires and controls that would go into them. And they really changed up in the way they looked. And now they have tons of buttons and switches and knobs and dials on them. Well, maybe not dials, actually. That's a weird one. And here's a picture of a steering wheel from the 1980s. Here's a picture from one from the 90s, so you can really see the difference. And really, there hasn't been too much innovation since then. Really, the only newer innovation has been Tesla's yoke steering wheel, which is more often used on airplanes, but Tesla's decided to use it on some of their other things. But, the steering wheel could become obsolete eventually because of autonomous and self-driving cars. We never know. We'll see. And, yeah, that's been the history of steering wheels. Hope you liked it. Thank you for watching. Bye.